Hey everybody, welcome to Cars Jubilee. My name is Victor and today we're back in my Ioniq 5. And for today's video, I wanted to give some advice or food for thought before you buy an Ioniq 5. So let's get to it. I think one of the first things a lot of you guys will try to do is figure out which trim level Ioniq 5 you want to buy. Now here in the US, the limited trim is the top spec and it's the hardest one to find. A lot of people are just sitting on wait lists for months and months, and in other markets it might be the ultimate spec or some other trim level, and again, those are just harder to come by. So one of the first things I want to answer is it worth waiting for a limited spec Ioniq 5 or a top spec Ioniq 5 in other markets? Having owned my limited trim Ioniq 5 for 10 months now, I can say that I've really enjoyed it. I don't have any regrets getting this limited trim Ioniq 5. But truthfully, I think I would have been happy with an SCL or an SE trim as well. So let's dig a little deeper. Which upgraded features in this limited trim Ioniq 5 have I actually used or appreciated the most? The first feature would be the ventilated seats. Summers here in Philadelphia get really hot and really humid. We see temperatures near 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and like I said, the humidity is pretty high. And having these ventilated seats has been really nice in the summertime. The second upgraded feature or features that I've really enjoyed using daily is actually the heads-up display and the blind spot cameras that show up in my driver's display. Now, I kind of wish both of these features would just be standard safety tech across the board for all cars because they're really helpful. The heads-up display helps me keep my eyes on the road, but I can still see how fast I'm going and some other important information. And with the blind spot cameras showing up in my driver's display when I flash my signal, it just gives me so much more confidence when I change lanes. So again, I really wish they were standard features, but since they're not, they're really useful in day-to-day life with the Ioniq 5. But honestly, that's kind of it. Those are the features that I would really miss if I didn't have the limited trim Ioniq 5. Let's move on to which limited trim features are nice, but I don't need. Well, we would have to start with this vision roof. And I mean, it's got this wow factor. As soon as you step in the car, you just see how bright and airy and open this car is, in large part because there is this large vision roof. But when I think about it, do I really need it? Not really. And especially in the summertime when it's hot, my shade is always closed, so I barely ever look out of this vision roof during the summer. Next up would be the exterior enhanced looks. That includes the silver trim and the 20-inch pixel theme wheels. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the shooting star gray with the silver trim and those wheels looks amazing. It really adds to the look of the car. However, if I were going for an Atlas white car, well, honestly, I would probably prefer the SCL or the SE look with the black trim, because then you get this really cool stormtrooper look for the car. And if I went for the phantom black color on the outside, well, then I would definitely want the SCL and SE trim as well, because with everything blacked out, this thing has like a Darth Vader look, again, which I think is really cool. And after that would probably be the 360-degree camera system. And again, this thing is really good. One of the best that I've ever used. But the main reason that I need it is because of the 20-inch wheels. Those things get curbed really easily. So every time I'm parking, I'm using the top-down view, and then I'm also using the view that lets me see my front wheels because, again, I'm just constantly worried about curbing them. If I had the lower trim wheels that are 19-inch, well, they have a bigger, taller sidewall to the point where I think I wouldn't have to worry about them as much. So even going down super narrow streets, I just would be worried a lot less. I don't think I would need the 360-degree camera system. And then the same goes for those auto-tilting side mirrors. If I didn't have the 20-inch wheels, I don't think I'd really need them because I wouldn't be really worried about the 19-inch wheels getting curved all the time. Now, you can also add HDA2 to the list of things that I don't really need because HDA is that good. Now, if you want to know more about that comparison, I have an HDA versus HDA2 video. Check that out. That should tell you everything you need to know. And then there's this sliding front center console. I've used it maybe once or twice. And in fact, if this stopped working tomorrow, I would probably never know because I just never use it. One thing worth mentioning, I think, has to do with this Vision roof. I mentioned there's a wow factor as soon as you walk in. Well, there's another wow factor, and that is if you have to replace this thing, it's going to take a long time. In fact, mine cracked, and it took me 10 weeks to get it replaced because of parts shortage issues, because of shops that have never touched an Ioniq 5 issues, just a lot of different things. But keep that in mind. That's something extra that could go wrong in the car. So, is the Ioniq 5 limited trim or a top spec trim worth waiting for? I think it depends how long you have to wait. Personally speaking, I was able to buy mine right off a dealer's lot, so I didn't have to wait. Then I also bought it at MSRP with no markup, no dealer add-ons of any kind. So for me, in my specific scenario, I think I made the right choice. I've loved this Ioniq 5 in the limited trim, and I've enjoyed all the features about it. But for everyone else, well, if dropping to a lower trim will get you into a car sooner, well then I would highly consider it. Because if I were in those shoes, I would rather get an SEL than wait months and months and months for a limited trim. And if you told me, hey, you can get one even sooner if you got an SE trim, well, I would highly consider that as well. Basically, if I were in the market now, I'd be completely open to a white or black SE or SEL so that I could get that Stormtrooper or Darth Vader look, because they look really cool. And I say that because the very, very best parts of the Ioniq 5 are here in every trim, meaning the amazing regen system with these paddles, it's there in every trim. And then also, if you want the all-wheel drive with 320 horsepower, 446 pound-feet of torque, again, that's there in every trim, except for the SE standard range, I think. On top of that, you still get HDA, and you'll actually get better range because you have the smaller wheels. The next piece of advice would be the whole matte versus non-matte paint option. Now, I did a video on that a little while back around the 8th month mark, talking about my experience of ownership with the matte paint, and I'll just put it like this. I would 100% consider buying another Hyundai product that has matte paint because it's been that easy to live with. It hasn't really been a pain, and I think it looks really, really cool. So I would definitely consider doing it again. This next piece of advice has to do with servicing your Ioniq 5. Now, my 9th month update was kind of all about the servicing, and I've got other videos where I've discussed servicing the Ioniq 5, and that's where things can get a little tricky. So I would highly recommend that you do some research beforehand. Go on the different forums and ask, hey, how is this dealer? How is that dealer? Find the ones that are local to you so you know beforehand what your service experience is going to be like. Because especially here in the US, the level of service that you get from one dealership to another can be drastically different. So personally speaking, I had two options in terms of local servicing through an Ioniq 5 certified dealer. They're both about an hour away. One offers loaners and rental cars if they run out of loaners. The other one does not provide loaners or rentals, and in fact says we only offer ride sharing. But for me, I live an hour away, I have a car seat, and I have to transport my son around. So ride sharing wouldn't really work for me. So if you do your research, you might realize, hey, you only have one certified Ioniq 5 dealership within maybe 3 or 4 hours of you. Can you make that sacrifice of spending 3 to 4 hours driving one way to service your car? And then you have to make sure that they will give you a loaner. So again, I highly recommend you do some research beforehand to make sure that your servicing options are going to be good before you buy an Ioniq 5. And finally, this last one, which I think has been a huge help for me as well, is the fact that the Ioniq 5 is just a global hit. So that means you have owners all over the world driving Ioniq 5s in all sorts of different settings and experiencing different things. But that also means you have a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips. Meaning, go on the forums, go on the different Facebook groups, and if you have questions, just ask them, and more likely than not, someone on there will be able to answer your question. In fact, one of the very first things I did when I bought my Ioniq 5 was I saw this little orange light. In fact, it's on right now. I'm going to take a picture of it so I can show you guys. But this orange light came on, and I was wondering, what in the world is that thing? And the manual is, in the US, 663 pages. It's really long. I figured, hey, let me just jump on the forums and see if someone knows. And within minutes, I got a response saying, hey, that just lets you know that your 12-volt battery is being charged by the car. Not only that, but then I also learned that this little orange light is actually not in all the cars. Certain markets do not have that light. So not only did I get information that I needed, but I also learned just more stuff about this Ioniq 5. And so I would highly encourage you to take advantage of that resource, ask questions before you buy about things that you're curious about. And of course, there's all these resources now on YouTube, a ton of good channels to look at. You know, you've got James, Lemon Tea Leaf, you've got Corbin, Ioniq Guy. Now, maybe you're cross-shopping the Ioniq 5 with a Tesla Model Y. I actually got some seat time with a Model Y for about a week, really enjoyed it, and I got to do a head-to-head comparison. I got to do some first impressions. I'll post those videos somewhere up here as well, so you can check those out. But otherwise, that wraps this one up. If you have questions, I'll be more than happy to try and answer them. Just let me know in the comment section below. And for those of you that already have an Ioniq 5, please chime in and let others know what's the best advice you could give to someone currently looking for an Ioniq 5. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.